I'd like to share with you guys something that I don't personally know what to make of, because I get conflicting information. When we look at the ChatGPT API platform login, where you can basically practice the API calls, and you can also just look at the documentation, so everything that's related to the API. I saw this comment here, which is why I assume that the API was actually a much safer route than using the web UI, because the web UI retains information for a while. I mean, there are options there that you can increase privacy and so on, but this looked like a safer option. However, and I was operating under this impression, but then I asked ChatGPT the question, this following question: is ChatGPT retaining the content of uploaded data when using its API as opposed to its public web UI? So I expected obviously I expected a confirmation of what they claim in their API page. But I got a very surprising answer. Now, this answer may have to do with the fact that ChatGPT is, what you get when you're using their web UI is using older versions of everything, right? It's always behind a few months or a couple of years even when it comes to documentation. So maybe this is talking about an old version, but it is disturbing what it's saying. OpenAI, the organization behind ChatGPT, has distinct policies for handling data depending on whether the model is accessed via the API or through its public web interface. Okay, so API usage. When using the OpenAI API, the content you submit can be retained by OpenAI for various purposes, including improving model performance and ensuring compliance with their use case policies. OpenAI has explicitly stated in their data usage policy that they may use the data sent through the API to continuously train and improve the performance of their models. This is in direct conflict with what they're saying in their API page. This includes data from prompts, completions, and other interactions. For interactions with ChatGPT on the public web interface, OpenAI has outlined a different approach. They emphasize user privacy more heavily in this context, specifying that the conversations are not stored after the session ends. This means that once you close your browser or end the session, the data from that interaction is not retained. The key difference lies in the intended use and the environment. I mean, not only this is in conflict with what's in their API page, but besides this conflict, it makes no sense because the API is used for commercial purposes. So there's intellectual property potentially at risk as well. So let's just read, because it actually starts getting into that. And I am just very surprised. I guess GPT can be wrong sometimes, and this may be one of those cases. API users often have commercial or development-oriented goals, and their data helps in refining the models they are paying to access. Okay, public web UI users are typically individuals who are interacting with ChatGPT casually or out of a personal interest without the same expectations or consent regarding data retention for model training. So, I mean, there's a difference between data retention for your own private use of the model, and there's data retention in general when you submit it to them, your own intellectual property. And if they retain some of that, I think that's problematic. This is not very clear how this is saying it. If privacy is a concern, users should review OpenAI's privacy policy and terms of service or consider utilizing specific settings or parameters that limit the data retention. It's the normal disclaimer that ChatGPT puts on the end of everything. These documents and settings are regularly updated, so checking OpenAI's official blah blah blah. So there's always a paragraph that basically disclaims everything at the end. But I mean, still the fact that this is in direct conflict with their policies document is something that is totally unexpected. At least I didn't expect it. So let's look at some other things. There's a website called privacycommonsense.org, and this has a sentence here that's kind of interesting. Okay. The terms say OpenAI may use the data users provide to improve their future models. Users can opt out of training in ChatGPT settings under data controls to turn off training for any conversations created while training is disabled. The terms also say ChatGPT will not use data submitted by customers via the API. Direct conflict, right? To train or improve their models, unless users explicitly opt in to share their data with them for this purpose. In addition, the terms say ChatGPT does not sell users' data to third parties. Okay, however, the terms do not disclose whether ChatGPT can display targeted advertisements to users, send third-party marketing communications, or track users based on their interactions with ChatGPT on other apps and services across the internet for advertising purposes. Okay, fine. So I would assume that probably these, because these are written by humans, this is probably what's correct, and ChatGPT just gave the wrong information, maybe for the wrong version from years ago, or it was just an erroneous response. But the point here is that based on these documents, which were written by humans, I am this is actually the same. Yeah, it's the same thing highlighted. Based on this, I think that my original assumption was correct, and using the API protects your intellectual property and your privacy much more, which makes a lot of sense, right? Because APIs are used to build commercial applications, and let's say you're doing drug development, or you're doing any kind of research, right? That research might be might be extremely valuable. You don't want that to be dispersed all over the internet. I mean, private things are also valuable, right? But people know not to share their personal data. However, if you're using ChatGPT for commercial development, you simply cannot not share sensitive data, because your application that's what might have to work with, right? If you're an insurance company or a bank or anything like that, there's going to be some information that's privileged, and so the answer I got from ChatGPT was total nonsense, basically. And I'm glad that basically every document that I looked at that was written by humans is contradicting that. So I just thought I talk about this because I think it's a very important issue, and we just have to make sure we understand how usable ChatGPT is, and what the privacy policies are for when we are using it for commercial applications. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.